All right, so let's go to it's Thursday, so it's time for a quick test. This is all about data and data management. So it's all about the parameters discussions we had the last week, some of them many weeks ago. So if you attended the class last Tuesday, this should be easy for you. Go to slido.com and add the code 552854. Give you a minute to log in or use your mobile device at the QR code. Understanding how Revit manages custom information and schedule it, it's important. And the question, I have 8 questions for you, and they all relate at how Revit uses parameters and parameters values. Okay, so activate the quiz and feel free to join. You will be prompted for the question or your name. All right. Waiting for more people to join. Slido.com 552854. Okay, it sounds like. Right. Oh, there you go. Say Nagaras, Luis. Alrighty. Zena, you want to partake?
No.
No? Okay. All right, let's get started then. We'll go with the question number 1. All right, I've been saying this from day 2. A property that is common to all the elements of the same type. If it changes parameter value, it changes to all the existing elements in the project. Is it an instance parameter, a type parameter, or a family parameter? Any other taker? Okay, let's check the answer. Correct, type parameter, yay. So to avoid changing type parameters inadvertently, we duplicate a type. And once we have a duplicate, then we change the parameter value. Good job. Good job, Jennifer. All righty, let's go to the next question. All about parameters as well, parameter definition. A parameter that is unique to an element instance is a instance parameter, type parameter, or family parameter. The answer's in. This should be easy too. Right. Let's see the results. Yeah, everybody got it right. Instance parameters is unique to an object. It's in the same. I give you the answer in the question. Um, and is unique to a project. Most mark values are unique. For example, the door mark or a window mark. This is the next one. Oh, let's see. Then Jennifer, good job. Steve, good job. All righty. Welcome, Ruth. Very quickly, just how's it going, Ruth? I'm going to copy paste the links for today's data sets in the chat panel. You probably don't see them, but now you do. All right, next question. And we discussed this last week. This is a custom created parameter that is unique to a model. It can be scheduled, but it cannot be tagged. Is that a product parameter, share parameter, or an instance parameter?
I said that.
All right, for people, for answers in, let's check the right answer. Yes, correct. Project parameters. Project parameters are created on the fly, and they apply only to the project. You can schedule it, but you cannot tag them. Awesome. Again, good job, Jennifer. And Cecilia and Liz. Next question. The GUID value allows data to be aggregated on the same column in multi-model schedules. What does GUID stand for? General Universal ID, General Unique Identifier, General Uniform Information. The GUID, it's a 32 character code that is embedded in the share parameter file. And when we want multiple models to aggregate information, we have to share this file across different consultants or different people. Okay, I have 4 answers in. Let's chance. And most of you got it correct. It is a global unique identifier. Good job. And wow, Jennifer, you're kicking it today. Good job, Steve. Good job, Luis. So question number 5. A parameter definition retrieved from a centralized dictionary to allow consistent data format across multiple models. It can be both scheduled and tagged. Is that a project parameter, share parameter, family parameter? And I guess everybody got this in already. Okay, let's see the answers. Yes, most of you got it right. Share parameter. Share parameter is retrieved from the share parameter file, which is placed in a centralized location. The purpose of a share parameter is to make sure that the GUID is consistent between models and that information is scheduled in a single column across the schedules. It can be both scheduled and tagged. Family parameters are created inside the family editor. I haven't talked much about family parameters. When we talk about a family editor, that's where we're going to talk about it. All right. The leaderboard, good job, Steve. All right, let's go to question number 6. Can you copy paste a schedule between projects? True or false? All right, 4 answers in. 5 answers in. The answer is correct. Yeah, you can copy paste schedules between models, and the beauty of it is that when you copy paste, you transfer any project and share parameters from one project to another one. Gotta be careful to, if the parameter is already existing in the project, but they have different GUID, you may have a project with the same name twice. I don't know, for those who use in Revit, and then you're creating a schedule, then suddenly you see the same parameter listed twice. And you wonder why. It's because they both have different two GUIDs, even though their name is the same. So you can do this with care, right? You don't want to replicate or create redundant parameters. That's the correct answer. And the leaderboard is still Steve, good job, and Luis, 6 out of 6 correct answers. Okay, question number 7. You are modeling really fast, and then you notice there is a room missing. What should you do first? Create a new room, pick the room from the placeholder list in the options bar and place it, or check that the space has a room bounded wall. Okay, we talked about it last class. Okay, 4 answers in. Last chance. See the right answer. The right answer is make sure that the room is, if a room is missing, it means that it was deleted by mistake from the view. But if the room is deleted, doesn't mean that it's gone from the project. So the database is still existing in the background. So A, you don't want to create a new room. If the room has not abounding walls, it's not going to disappear in the project. It's still going to be there. You're still going to see the tag. What's going to happen is the room is not going to report the area or the perimeter because it doesn't have any bounding elements. And so the third option, it's incorrect because the tag and the room will still be visible in the project. It's just not going to be expanded across the space. And so the first thing you need to check is to make sure you place a room again from the placeholder list available in the options bar. All righty, and the last question. Good job, Luis. Good job, Negar. Good job, Steve. And last question, easy. Can I change a parameter from instance to type or from type to instance? Is that true or is that false? One answer in. All right, let's see the results. Well, 50-50. The answer is true. We can change parameter from instance to type. But we cannot change, I mean, in the case of a shared parameter, we cannot change the name or the group or the type of format. We have basically to delete the parameter and recreate it. But let me show you here. When you have a project parameter, you can modify it and access whether it's an instance of a type. So on the project parameter, these are the project parameters in my project. When I modify it, oh, look at, I was wrong. Let me say this, modify. Is that true? Oh, I have to be on a 3D view. 1 second. Oh my God, I was wrong. I was wrong. So, okay, I flunk. Once a parameter is created, you cannot change it. Let me add one just to check. Here is where we have the opportunity to create a parameter. I'm going to create one that's called info. I'm going to make it instance and I'm going to assign it to the project information. And it's going to be text. Okay, now it's done. Then I go back to project parameters and modify it. Correct, I cannot change the type. Okay, I take that back and I have to fix this and I flunked my test. So I take that back and that was the last question for today. All right, let's see who won. Negar and Luis, good job. And Steve, good job. This is the hardest question. So if we are missing a room in a project, double check that still exists in the database. And what I was saying, let's try to replicate that. That happens very often when you're modeling in Revit. Say you're reconfiguring this space and you're shuffling things around. And because you're working too fast, you don't notice that this room is deleted by mistake. What people usually do is, oh, I don't see the room, I'm going to create it again. So you go to room and then you place it again in the center. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is, again, activate the room. And then in this placeholder list in the options bar, you're going to see the missing, the list of rooms that haven't been placed. It's a placeholder. All you need to do is to pick it from this drop-down list and then drop it. And then you don't have to retype all the instance properties associated with that. It's particular if the room has metadata about the finishes and the program information. Okay, a lot of people, especially beginners, are not taught about that. And when I was doing my QA reviews in my projects, and I place a room, I will see tons of rooms here. And that means the designers didn't see the room, and then they created a new one from scratch. But all right, so, and then what I was saying is a room can exist in a view like this one. This is an unbounded room. It's still visible in the view. It doesn't extend to anything. But if a room is unbounded, then we check that it's surrounded by walls. Once we place walls around it, the room change its shape. And now you can see that it's extend throughout everything. All right. So let's close. I'm going to close this file, and let's talk about details. And let's talk about organizing a model and organizing sheets and creating details. So hopefully you're able to download the data sets. The links are on the chat panel. I'm going to open the Autobahn files, which has the architectural, mechanical, and site, I think a landscape. Unzip it and open it in a place you can access it. I'm going to open the Autobahn architectural project. It's a school developed by the DG group. I'm not familiar with that firm, but apparently probably from the East Coast. Just when especially a 3D view, this is how it looks like. It's a nice design, actually. But notice how, unlike the beginners, the template that we use in our projects, this file has a lot of different views. One of the things you're going to notice is the project browser organization. Well, let me say, the project browser is the list of views in the project. And they can be organized in different ways. If you right click on the project browser type views, you're going to see something called the browser organization. And this checkbox indicate different ways of displaying the information contained by the project browser. Views and sheets can be organized in tiers using different parameter values. If you switch this browser organization to all is the default browser organization. You're going to see that the views now have 2 tiers of information. You have the view family type. I mean, views are organized by the type of view: ceiling plans, elevation, sections, details, rendering. And then you will notice that the sheets are also organized by alphabetically. Now let's look at the other types, browser organization. There are other ways of organizing this, and you can create new organization schemes by clicking the new here. Or let's explore the ones that are out there. For example, you can organize by type, by drawing type. And when you do this, then notice how all the floor plans are bundled together. All the drafting views are bundled together. And the way to understand this project organization is by looking at the by editing. So if you select edit button here, notice that under group and sorting, the views in the browser at the first tier, which is this floor plan, it's using the family and type. And then on the second tier is using a custom parameter of the sheet category called the drawing type. Drawing type is not a parameter that ships out of Revit. Drawing type is a project parameter associated with the views category that allow users to create a different way of organizing the views. And so when I open, let's say, when I open, I'm going to cancel here. When I open a floor plan, let's say the first one, project building code, and you scroll down at the floor plan properties, you're going to find a new parameter called drawing type. And this drawing type is a custom parameter created for the project that allow the user to organize the project in a different way. So to confirm this, if I'm go to the Manage tab and then go to Project Parameters, notice that these are all custom parameters. And I should see here the drawing type. Let's see, here is drawing type. When I modify it, notice that it's a project parameter, and it was assigned to the category of the views. And companies utilize custom parameters to organize their views in a better way. I'll give you another example. Sheets, for example, are by default sorted out alphabetically. But sometimes, especially projects that have packages that goes to different agencies, maybe you want to sort the sheets using a custom parameter called milestone. And then you group them by, the package that went to permit, the package that go to another agency review. And then rather than having a continuous list of alphabetically, for example, look at this. These are field clarification, and they are called FC171. These are probably projects created during the construction administration. And so if I want to segregate those sheets segregate the sheets in different tier, I can create a new parameter associated with the sheet parameter, with the sheet category. And I can call it, let's say, phase, or we can call it milestone. And let's do that now. So, so let's create a project parameter. I'm going to add it here. And I'm going to create a project parameter called milestone. And it's associated, it's an instance parameter because each sheet may have a different value. It's going to report text information, and I'm going to place it under the category of other. And it's going to be associated to the category of sheets. Sheets, here it is. Milestone, instance, text, other, sheets. Ideally, I should use share parameters, but I don't have the share parameters for this project. So I'm going to just do a project parameter. Hit OK, hit OK. Nothing seems to happen, right? I'm going to go into this field clarification. These are, the sketches. And in the properties of the sheet, you're going to find under other, the new parameter called milestone. And I'm going to call this CA. And maybe I'll do that for other sheets as well. So go to the FC10-1. I'm going to call the milestone CA. Or I could select multiple sheets at the same time and add the CA parameter to all of them in a single step. Didn't work. Let's see, Shift and CA, apply. Let's see if it worked. CA here, CA here. So that is a new parameter, and I could customize the project browser to display a different way of organizing the sheets. So in the browser organization, I'm going to go back, browser organization. I'm going to edit the by drawing type. Just edit here. Actually, go to sheets. Yeah, go to sheets. And we're going to create a new, under the sheets tab, we're going to create a new organization scheme. And I'm going to call this sheet type. Oh, there's one, it's called sheet type. I'm going to add, no, let's add a different name. Let's call this deliverables. And then the sheets will be grouped by the parameter milestone. And then it's going to be sorted by yeah, I'm just going to leave it like that. It's going to be sorted. It's going to be grouped by milestone, and it's going to be sorted by the sheet number in an ascending order. Hit OK. Again, go to the browser organization, right-click the views, open the browser organization, switch to the sheet tab, hit the new button, call it deliverables, and then in the group and sorting tab, add the milestone parameter, and then hit OK. And see what happens when I apply it. I'm going to select the deliverables and then I apply it. Okay. Then my sheets, notice that they are sorted by the parameter of CA. So everything that is FC is now falling under CA, and the rest of the sheets doesn't have a value, and that's why it has this question mark. Now I can see here in the browser organizations that there are other types, like select the sheet type and apply it. And let's see what values are there. There's nothing in the sheet type. So browser organization, if you can organize this, let's say by drone by. This is going to expose the name of the parameters that are embedded into drone by, and I don't know why it says 0, 0, 1, and 3. But let's return back to the deliverables, apply, okay. And then see how it says CA. Now, if there were some sheets here that served another purpose, for example, there are these daylight views, EQ P1.1, EQ 1.2. Well, these are lead sheets. And if you double click one of them, you're going to see that there is information prepared in Revit to comply with the lead requirements, and they were probably submitted for that purpose. So in the property of the sheet that's called milestone, I'm just going to add lead, apply. And then I could also add the same parameter value to the other sheets, the EQ 1.2. You're going to find the value in the drop-down list and do the same for the last one, the EQ 1.1, and call the milestone lead. Now these three sheets are now, the way they are organized by the value. And now you can segregate the lead specific sheets under the same value. So you should check what your standards are in your office, but most likely this is a parameter that gets customized from project to project. The other thing, for example, when this is useful, it's sheets are usually organized in alphabetical ascendant order. And sometimes, especially when you have a combined sheet list using a shared parameter and the models from multiple consultants, you may want to organize the sheet not by alphabetically, but you want to organize them by trade. And the typical trade sequence in sheets is you have the code analysis sheet first, although that's debatable. I've seen in other places as well. Then you have the architectural, the landscape, then the civil, then architectural, then structural, and you may or may not agree with me. But if the order of the disciplines is not exactly alphabetical, you can create a project parameter called discipline or order or sheet order, and add a numerical value number 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then the sheets are going to get organized in the project browser based on that parameter value ascendant order rather than the alphabetical name of the sheet. That makes sense. Now in this project, I only have like these are bulletins, and these are in B is the bulletin 13, bulletin 27, bulletin 11. If we want to follow the logic, let's say, let's group the bulletin 15. I'm going to open bulletin 15 and add a parameter under the milestone called bulletin 15. And as soon as I do that, Revit's going to shift that sheet under its own header. And you can do that very quickly by Control Select all the sheets that are B15. I select them all, and then I give them the bulletin 15 drop-down value, and they will be sorted out in the same header. So those are some of the techniques used by firms to manage how sheets are organized. This can be customized to meet project needs. Not all rules apply the same because deliverables and methods of deliverables change from project to project. But once you establish a sheet organization system, you better share it with the consultants so they follow a similar process. A lot of these organization methods are dependent upon the extent of your scope, how many packages you're going to have, how many users, how many sheets are going to get produced. if it's going to be a small project with only 5 sheets, you don't need all these crazy organizations. If we're talking about, mid, large, complex project, navigating through the project browser across hundreds and hundreds of sheets, it can be very annoying. It's very hard to find things. And so the more organized you are with the way the information is presented to the users, the better it is. Let me also show you a quick tip. If you're finding hard to navigate through all the sheets and views in the project browser, you can just simply right-click on the views and hit the search. And if you're if you know your sheet has a keyword, let's say I want to find where the furniture plan is, and there are hundreds of sheets that I don't want to sort out. So let's just type furniture, and this is going to search for the word furniture across the views and the sheets. And if you keep clicking next, then everything that has the word furniture will be highlighted in the project browser. The same is true with the families. You want to install a certain wall type, or these also search the family names inside the project browser, inside the family editor. Okay, any question how to organize sheets, ways to customize the browser organization? You can do it by views, you can do it by sheets, you can also do it by schedule. You can create new ways of organizing the schedule. The default one out of the box is all. Like if you notice, I cannot, when I select the sheet, I can rename them, I can edit it. I cannot delete it once it's created. You see the delete button is grayed out. I want to save this file and move to the next topic. The question here, pretty simple ways of organizing data in Revit. Okay, let's talk about detailing. So I'm going to close this. And I believe I have a PowerPoint about details. Yes, I do. Give me a second. Desktop. All right. This is an old deck back to the time when I was working at ID8. I used to teach that. Okay, so, and we already created the callouts and section details in the previous classes. Let's review that content. I'm going to throw you a new concept, which is the drafting views. Discuss some of the detailing tools, detail components, and how the proper way of importing details from a CAD file. So when we create new views, either in large plan or in large sections, you definitely need to use the call out tool. The call out tool creates a view boundary, which act like a viewport to area in the modeling plan or elevation or section that assigns a new scale and an ability to display the model in a different resolution. The section details work very similar, the same way, but rather than define a boundary, they're actually creating a work section in plan. And when you see it's the display of the work section in projection view. You can create building sections under this tool. You can create wall sections or detail sections. And we did this already in a previous class, if you recall. Now, a drafting view, it's a view that does not connect to the 3D view. A drafting view is the equivalent of having a blank sheet in the project. And it's the space where you create two-dimensional details. It's also this place where you typically import files created in other CAD formats. If you're coming from an AutoCAD background, you probably come from the time where we have a centralized location of CAD details. And the good news is that those CAD details can be recycled and reutilized in Revit if we import them into a drafting view. So now there is a problem with AutoCAD, bringing AutoCAD into Revit, that AutoCAD has a lot of entities that cannot be correctly translated by Revit. Those entities are called ARX objects, and it's particular more visible when you bring files created with other CAD applications, for example, Civil 3D or non-proprietary Autodesk products or third-party add-ons. And so rather than importing the DWG directly into the Revit project, you can import it into a detail family and keep the foreign definitions in the family and not inside the project. We're going to do an exercise of that. Drafting view is also the place, in addition to be the place where you put CAD files or CAD details, it's also the place where you create Revit details. A Revit detail is made of lines from different line weights, detail lines, and detail components. These are the typical symbol marks associated with the different view families. As we were seeing earlier, floor plans, sections, detail views, all of them represent a different view family. And each view family has a different markups. The plan callouts is a plain single circle, the section has an arrow and a tail. This wall section without a solid fill represents a wall section. You may disagree with this or may not use it at all. But all these symbol marks can be customized to meet your company representation standards. And I've been in battles, in discussions where architects cannot agree what is the best way to do the detailed view mark. For example, I remember a discussion I had when I was a practitioner that this symbol needed to be white rather than black, or whether this needs to be filled or not. I don't care. As long as there's a standard and we follow it, that's the way to do it. So all these different symbol marks are associated with actual views, and the views are work planes sectioning the actual model. Now, if the model is repeated in many times, in many places across the project, you don't have to create live sections every time. I'll give you an example. Wall transitions. Finishes transitions. The finish transition is a typical detail that it may be repeated in multiple places in the model, but I don't have to create a live section across every condition in the entire project. In those cases, I create something called a reference view. In a reference view, it's a symbol mark that it's associated with the visibility of another view. So when we create this type of section or enlarged plan, we actually pick from this drop-down list an existing drawing or an existing detail, and Revit is not going to create a three-dimensional viewport associated with that. So we're going to do that as well. All right, this is the typical detailing workflow. Once after we create the section or detail view or enlarged plan, the model is going to come with imperfection. Not all the models at a certain scale are going to be modeled perfectly. Ideally, we want them to be perfect. And obviously it depends on the skill of the modeler. But sometimes there are things visible in the view that should be switched off, or that is going to be confused for the design intent. And so you simply hide it by category, hide by subcategory, or just simply select it, right click and hide. And then the 3D geometry in the view is going to be really rough. Like it's going to be bare bones. So it's not going to have the level of detail needed to communicate the construction or the materials. And so what Revit does, or the strategy that Revit does, is to add on top of the view detail components. And detail components are two-dimensional representations of assembles and materials that enhance the design intent of a detail. So in this view that you see on the right, all the elements highlighted in red are elements you collect directly from the 3D model. The reglet line, the concrete, the outline of the walls or the site. That is the rough geometry that comes directly from the 3D view. And then in blue, everything, all the elements that you see in blue, like the break line, the two-dimensional detail components, the insulation or the view-specific detail lines, those are things we put on top of the view to enhance its communication. And the collection of objects we place on top of the view are under the annotation tab detail panel. So you can add detail lines, you can add regions. Regions are hatches, and this will be two-dimensional view-specific hatches. They are not going to be visible in 3D view. They're going to be just visible in that particular view. You can add two-dimensional components like the reglets, profiles, or the 2x4s in this drawing. We use Revision Cloud for project management. Or you can add a detail group. A detail group is a collection of two-dimensional objects. It's like a model group, but it was only visible and applied to it on top of a view. And installation objects. all the elements you need to do a detail will be available to you in the detail panel. I just mentioned all of this. The regions, the part I didn't mention is that under region, there are two types. The fill region and the masking region. The fill region, it's a boundary with a fill pattern or a hatch. And a mask region, it's basically like whiteout, like having a patch of white fill that you put on top of the detail to erase that area. Like if the model was made really poor, my recommendation is to go back to the model and fix it. But sometimes, you know, if you're facing a deadline and you have no choice but grab a masking region, then just put it on top of the model, and that's going to blank out all that area. Okay, let's stop here and let's jump into the project. And let's see a couple of details already here. All right, so on the project browser, make sure in the browser organizations that we have the byte drawing type. Hit OK. And so you're going to see that under the views, you have detail views. And these are the detail views organized by type. I don't like that. Let's go back and right click the browser organization and just display the full one, the all. And what that does is display the details views into a single sheet. Now, detail views are views that are actually sectioning the 3D view. And drafting views are the two-dimensional views. And this is in the test next week. What's the difference between a detail view and a drafting view? The detail view sections the model and display 3D objects. The drafting views is a two-dimensional view and does not connect to the 3D objects. So let's go to the detail view and let's open the very first one, the barn door detail with beam. All right, so this is a nice detail. It does have, it's a combination of elements coming from the 3D model, and it has elements that are sitting on top of it. And so to understand how this is working, look at the properties of the view and disable the crop view checkbox. Now, this is the entire section of the model, right? The crop region is actually narrowing the extent of the model to just a certain extent. And to understand what's really happening, I mean, do a window selection. Well, you don't have to do this. You just watch. Do a window selection here and use the filter to select or deselect the grids, the views, and the light fixtures. And everything else, the text, the lines, the dimensions, and the detail items, all of those are elements that are posted on, that are placed on top of the view. So those elements in blue, I'm just temporarily going to hide it, right? Hiding view elements. This is what you will find out of the model. Pretty bare boards, barely anything there. And in reality, you know, when you use Revit, the resolution of the modeling is good up 1/8 of an inch, I would say. Anything that needs to be represented at a smaller scale, we need to enhance it with the missing elements. So I'm going to undo this, and then everything comes back. These representation of a shaft, it's a fill region, it's a hatch. This steel element, it's a detail item. It's a representation of a 12 by 14. This is a runner. And then these are lines, dimensions. And so we place all these elements on top of the view to communicate how the product is going to get ultimately built. That makes sense. So where all these elements are coming from. So there's a good library out of the box with elements that you can bring into the project. So if you go to the Insert tab and go to the Load Family and scroll the Detailed Items folder, you're going to see that the two-dimensional components are grouped by CSI division. So from division 1 to division 33, not all of the numbers are there, but it has enough components that you can get started. For example, I'm going to add, let's say, a metal stud. You're going to find them under division 5, and then cold form metal joist framing. This is a two-dimensional component in section, in plan, in elevation. Bring the C-joist section, and this is loaded into the project. And then to place it, just go to the architecture, go to the detail, annotate, and then compute. And this is going to bring the last element loaded into the project. This is a detail component. Is not going to create a three-dimensional stud. You can change the type. You see, these are all the different types. 6 inches, 7 inches, 8, 9/4, 10, etc. Okay. So this is a detail component, and create a detail component is pretty easy. This example is sometimes I'm going to see some bad practices in this project, things to avoid. But things you want to avoid is to draw everything with detail lines. So if I try to recreate this stud and I do this with lines, you might be tempted to do this very quickly and you say, oh, it doesn't take anything to create a C. In reality, it's not that obvious, but this detail item, it's one family and it consumes 1 unit of memory. These 6 lines connected in a chain are 6 different objects that represent 6 units of memory. So if you draw these if you start a project from scratch, and then you add a detail component, and then you add the number of lines, you're going to see the difference in bytes. It may not that big if you have 1, but if you start representing your stud as a chain of 6 lines everywhere, the file size is going to start growing. And so avoid creating components just using line, and use as much as possible detail components. Now, the library that ships out of Revit, it's good, it's not exhaustive. And so a lot of companies expend resources to build a solid detail library. Like these, for example, these light gauge metal stud 8 by 1.5. This detail item doesn't come out of the box. This company created in their library of components, and they decided that this was a better family for their purposes. And yeah, these are all families coming from another company. Another thing like this is the representation of Gboard soffit, and it's made out of hatch. This is good. You can build that using a hatch, and it's perfect. You just draw it manually, and it works. But you could also, rather than using a hatch, you can also use a detail component that actually represent the different sheets. So if you go to annotate tab and no, the insert tab and load a family and go instead of the metal framing, let's go to the Gboard will be under these finishes. And there is plaster and chipboard. And you have Gboard here. And then there is Gboard sections, wool noises, encasement. Now this is a Gboard wallboard. And load it into the project and place it again under the annotate tab component. And I want you to look at the difference. In my opinion, this looks better than that one at that scale. And it's actually the way a Gboard should be built. So I need to build a soffit. I'm going to do it here on the left side. I don't know. I would have created using these wallboard sections. Then I could easily communicate how they connect. Now to create another one, just type on the fly, create similar, and then create similar again, create similar. It actually show you how the different how they work together. Again, it's all about best practices. This is one way of doing it. It was quite effective. This is a better way of doing it using detail items. All right, let's look at another detail. There's a tons of details here to learn from. Let's see, you have jams details, seal details. This is storefront detail at column. Again, if you uncheck the crop view, that's going to display the entire model. So this is the context of the project. This is what's actually being crafted. I'm going to enable the crop view again. If you want to see what is a detail component and what is not, just filter out the insulation, the lines, the text notes, and the detail items, and the generic annotation. Everything else is coming from the model. Item view, category, elements. This is what's coming from the model, and it's pretty rough. And then when I undo this, then these are additional model elements. I guess this is showing a reinforcement to the curtain wall outside. And it's all made of detail items, things that are missing from the model. Okay, does that make sense? Now let's look now at drafting views. Drafting views is the space for two-dimensional views. And all these details here, which are a lot of them, are drafting views. Here you have, for example, typical partition heads, typical partition connections, corner conditions, jam details. This is a good example. Like all of this is made of lines, hatches, and detail components. This does not connect to the project. Doesn't have a 3D view. If you look at the property of the view, there's no crop region. There's nothing. It's a drafting view. Drafting view cannot be uh, carried from one pro. Cannot represent 3D objects. And yes, this is all bad insulation detail item. I love this, that is detail items. A lot of people decided to use lines. That's not a best practice, and that's on the test. Best practice is to use detail components, not to draft lines. This is a true Revit detail. Now, what I was saying earlier is that details, open a floor plan, let's say the first floor dims. It's under the floor plans, first floor dims. Notice how this project has a lot of different sections and large details for different building conditions. The reason they have this populated because this file has been this view has been placed on sheets. Okay, so let's say, for example, these detail 5A4, when you select the bubble, it displays metadata about that detail. The name of that detail is storefront detail at column. Storefront detail at column. All right, if this same storefront detail at column detail is happening, I'm just gonna invent this. If this same detail needs to happen here, I don't need to create a live view in order to represent that molding condition. All I need to do is create a reference detail, and that's exactly what we're going to do. The name of the detail is storefront detail at column. I'm going to do this a couple of times. So again, I am under the floor plans, first floor dimensions, and then I'm going to create a reference view. You go to the View tab, create call out. In the choice of views, select a detailed view or an enlarged view. And here you click reference another view. When you do that, you will be this drop-down list will be highlighted, and you have access to all the drafting views in the project. And the name of this particular detail, I think it was storefront detail at column, and it tells you this is the name of the detail and it's living on sheet A5-4. So I'm going to select this detail and I'm going to place it over here. Once I place the call out, escape, select the symbol mark, click on the grip that's next to the circle, and I'm going to move it there. So these two are making reference to the same detail. This is the original live detail. This is a reference detail. And when you double click that, it's opening exactly the same storefront detail. That makes sense. And so use the same strategy for typical details on ceiling, on transitions, especially if you're doing interior elevations and you have, I don't know, casework sections all around and they're exactly the same section. You can place it and say typical in this room. You can also put it in another room. Does that make sense? All right, so let's talk now how to work with CAD. And in the chat panel, I put a link to the CAD file. The CAD file that we're going to make use has this, it's called B something. So let me bring it over. Okay, here it is. It's a B2016-A DT012. I'm going to open it. You don't have to. It's going to launch AutoCAD. Just want to show you that, I mean, this could be any typical detail that you have in your files, in your library. It's a detail that documents the connection of a louver with a sill. Very simple detail. If you wanted to bring this model into Revit, there are different, the best practice will be, let's recreate this into Revit using true Revit objects and using two-dimensional components. For example, I would bring this as a background in Revit. I would trace it using Revit lines. I would add this profile as family components and add true Revit text. That basically means recreate the entire detail into a drafting view. That is the best practice. But what happens, people doesn't have time and you're trying to get rushed through the project. Most people invest overhead time to transform the CAD details into Revit details, so you don't have to face on to do that yourself. And a repository of details in Revit is something that you may want to build in your organization so that you can always collect the typical details and import it from one project into another project. Okay, but this detail, it's in CAD, you don't have it in your library, and now we need to bring it into Revit. How do we do that? All right, so one thing you can do is to start a detail item, bring the DWG into the detail item family, and then bring it into the project. Let me show you how it works. So in Revit, I'm going to create a new family, file, new family. And then in the family templates, Imperial, I'm going to pick the detail item family. And then I'm going to bring I'm going to import the CAD file inside this family. So you go to Insert, CAD Import, navigate to the place where that CAD file exists. I have it on my D drive. And before you import it, make sure you change the colors to black and white. And usually the auto import works well. But this is something you have to check. Make sure that you're actually working with real units. And if the import unit is not correct, then you can switch this to a custom factor, find what the factor is, and then you have to manually place it. I'm going to leave out to detect and see how it comes. Here is the detail. Notice how it says 3 inches equal 1. This is great because then I can match this view the same way. So 3 inches equal 1. It is an import, so it's going to be reported as an import symbol in the instance properties. It's going to be pinned. And then that's it. Let's save this detail item, save as. And you may want to save this into your project folder under details. I'm just gonna call this the same way as the detail is. It's called seal louver, and then save it. Now, while I am in the family editor, I want to show you what happens when you import a CAD file. And so apparently nothing bad has happened, right? I didn't receive any warning, and you might as well be okay with this. But when you look at the object styles, actually, and the additional settings, and look at the line weights and line patterns. There's nothing here. There's a lot of foreign definitions that usually I carry out from imported files. But this file isn't that bad. Oh, that happens when I explode it. So let me do this. If I select this and I explode the CAD file, full explode, which is, you shouldn't do this at all in Revit, because when you explode a CAD file, a lot of crazy definitions are brought into the project. Let me show you this. When I select this line, the line pattern is called line A ano dash path. And that is the layer, the original AutoCAD layer. And so when I go to Manage tab and look at the line pattern definitions, no, it's not here. It's under line styles. All these different lines receive the name of the layer they used to be. And that's completely against the Revit standards you have set for your users. And so suddenly your project will be full of CAD derived line styles and text. So look at the name of the text here. The exploded text received the name of the detail, followed by the font, and then a suffix. And this type of text, if it has any variation, then it receives a number. Like the difference between these two types of text, one is underlined and the other is not. But regardless, all this text is not compliant with your Revit standards. And so, and then these arrows are not really arrows, they are just arcs. And these little things are a ton of little lines. They're not even a hatch, it's a ton of little lines. And speaking of making a file grow in size, all of these little lines are going to add a lot of space. So that's why we never explode at imported detail. I'm going to undo here and take me back to the original symbol. So once this is in, say, if anything happened about on foreign definitions, let's make this dirty work in a family, so it doesn't impact the project. So I'm going to save this detail item as seal louver, and then switch views, go back to my project. I'm going to create a new drafting view. So you go to the view tab, drafting view. The name of the detail is seal louver, seal at louver. And the scale, I know the scale because it's coming from Revit, from AutoCAD. It's 3=1. And then notice it add a scale value. This is good. This creates the two-dimensional space. And in here, I'm going to insert the detail item. So go to Insert, Load Family. Then I go to where I save my detail. I think I put it under my D drive. Seal louver. place it, zoom extent. Where is it? Zoom extent. Understand why it's not there. Open this again, the silver. Okay, here it is. It's an important family, and then file, save, yeah. And then in the project, search that, search, still. There it is, and then insert the family. No, why it's not. Let me see if maybe what I'm doing wrong is I think in the family I may have to explode it. So file, silver. If I do the full explode, then it's just gonna damage. It's just gonna be damage inside the family editor. Save it, and then switch to the view, and let's go back. Insert load family, silver, override. I don't know what happened. I have to investigate what's going on. Oh, let's see the visual style wireframe, and there's no view template. Why? It's odd that I don't. Oh, let's go to annotate. Oh, it's a detail item. Go to the annotate and then place the component. Here it is. Okay, I shouldn't have exploded it because then the text is not going to be visible. I just needed to place the component. It's not gonna be visible here. All right. Does that make sense? So in a nutshell, we have to in the family of the seal, which I exploited. I shouldn't have exploited it because by exploiting it, then the text sort of disappear. Then load the detail item into the project, and then place the detail item into the drafting view where it's going to be visible for you. You can also modify it, add additional text here as needed, architecture, or annotate text. You can add additional details if needed. Concrete. And this is the DG notes. Yeah. Etc. Any question here? Okay, the last thing I have for you is, let's see, let me think. We went to details. I guess that it is. I think I'm feeling that I'm missing something. Oh, I see. Then I remember. Another, so having a detail item and bring it into the project is one of the strategies. The other strategy is to create a new project from scratch, new project. And then bring that DWG detail into the drafting view. So under the view tab, create a new drafting view. Link the DWG, insert, manage links, go to tab format, add, and bring the DWG in black and white. This is a link file. But I'm going to convert it to a true Revit objects. And so all I need to do is to trace over the entire geometry. And you can do, one strategy you can do is to change the imported categories to halftone so that you can see what's missing. And this is halftone. And then trace it with lines. So under the annotate tab, select detail lines and use the pick line tool, the arrow with the green line, and pick the appropriate line styles for your company standards and just trace it over. This is actually going to be true Revit lines. This is not going to be imported CAD. And you're creating a detail that you can utilize later in a future project. This detail is small enough that I can recreate it very quickly just by picking lines. This thing I will do a detail item. I don't have time to create it, but you create a new detail item from scratch and then bring it over. Add the text, which is true Revit text instead of imported text. Annotate tab, text, and just draw on top of it. Bird screen. It's 1/4 of an inch, so I need to change the type to 3/32 Arial. I also need to change the scale to 3 = 1. And add arrows. This is the way you add arrows to the left or to the right of the text. And then this is really a through leader, is not an exploded hatch with a bunch of lines. And then you just copy multiple times. Copy multiple and constrain that allow you to copy the thing multiple times. Sealant. And then change the values. So this is more tedious. You will have to spend a little more time recreating the detail, but then you can unlink after you're done. In the Manage tab, you can on the link manager, manage links, remove the link. Select it and remove it, and then copy paste your true Revit object into your project drafting view, and then it will be a true Revit object. So this is the process. It's a little more tedious, but it's more Revit-like, BIM-like. This is actually used in Revit objects, and in it's called Seal. Search Seal. And there's a lot of seal details here.
So Cesar, would you import that to the section?
Import the to the section. I could do that too.
Well, where's the right place to put it?
Oh, these.
The sill detail.
Yeah, so I created a drafting view here. And in this particular example, I am putting it into a drafting view. The drafting view, I created a thing called sill at.
So it's on a detail sheet
Mhm.
as opposed to in the actual view.
Correct. Now,
Okay.
if you want to place this in the view, that's another thing. You can create a section detail 3-dimensional view
Right.
and then paste this on top of it. That's another.
But expedient wise, you got the detail done. You don't have the detail in the section. It has the bubble. It just should go in the detail sheet.
Yes.
Yep, got it. Thanks.
Yeah. So in this case, in this particular case, I'm going to create a new drafting view, and then I'm going to paste here, Control V. Oh, I need to go back and grab it. Copy this thing, Control C. This is from one model, and then this is another model. And place it. And now in this model, it's now a drafting view. And when I am in, if I want to place this, say this is the louver, and I want to reference it, then I go view. It will be a section detail, which is this one, and then reference the view. I think I called it drafting one. Drafting one. There is drafting one, and then I place it here. This, assuming that this is the louver, now I can just double click it. Oh, this is not the right one. It's called drafting 2, where I can change it. I can select it here and say this detail open drafting 2. When I double click it, it opens the detail. So rather than creating a live section, you're actually referencing the 2-dimensional detail. That makes sense. Okay, other things that is important. On your first you can transfer details from one model to another, especially the detail one. You spend a lot of time in this model. There's a lot of good details that you could reutilize in other model. How do you transfer it from one model to another? So I created a new model from scratch. This is a blank project. And now I say, okay, I'm going to capture some of the drafting details embedded in the other detail. How do I do that? So under the Insert tab, under the View tab, where is it? Insert from other view. So I'm going to insert import views. Brain fart right now. I'm blanking now, but there is a place where I can bring details from other files. Here? No. Where are you? Oh, here's insert from file. Here's insert is right here. Insert from file. You can insert views from another file into this view. So this is a blank project. And then I go to the, where my model is, and select the Audubon Center. And I select the architectural model, which has all these views. And so this is the list of all the views that I can bring from that project. And for example, you did a good job with the partitions types. And you can just select, I want to bring all the partition types from this project into another one. But you can pick and choose the ones you need. You can also bring schedules. You can also bring sheets. You can only bring sheets that have detailed items on it. If a sheet has live 3D views, it won't be listed here. That's why my list of sheets is very short. 3D views cannot be brought into because they are actually viewports into a 3D model that is different from this model. But I selected those drafting views, hit OK. And now these are warnings of materials. And then on the drafting views, I have all these drafting views that I already brought from the project. Other things you can do is insert 2D elements from a file. And this is just bring the two-dimensional components of a view. So for example, let's say this is a blank project. I'm going to create a new detail view here. Although I don't have anything here, but I'm just going to create a section view. And it's going to be a detail section here. Okay, this detail is empty. When I open it, double click it, it's empty. But I want to bring the two-dimensional components of a detail view and another model. So you go again, go to the Insert tab, Insert from File, two-dimensional element from a file. So what this is going to bring is just like, it's going to bring the view-specific objects of a detail view. Again, I'm going to navigate to the where my project is. Summer. I'm going to pick the Audubon Center art. And now look at, now I have elevations. I have all the detailed views, obviously. I have floor plans and I have sections. But the difference now is that this is of the section is, this is a composite view, right? It has 3D objects, has two-dimensional objects. Out of this section, it's only going to bring the two-dimensional objects. But it's not going to bring the 3D view because the view to the 3D view is the other model. And so I hit OK here and place it. The scale is wonky. Escape here, and I need to change the scale. Change the scale to, I don't know what the detail is. So the only things that were on top of the view were text. So maybe it was happenage. Yeah, it only brought the text information from that view. But that as far as you can do from 3D views. Like 3D views really belongs to a model. There's only a few things you can bring from it. Okay. Oh, here it is. Let me show you one other concept here. The reason these detail components were not showing is because they were outside of the viewport. When element components are outside of the viewport, they will become invisible. So I really have to stretch this boundary. And once I did that, let's do this a quarter. Image. this is better. Okay, so all these elements that are two-dimensional components were brought into the project, but they're only going to be visible if they are within the view boundary, the crop region. Okay, it's about time. Let me review my deck here for a few other things. Oh, another thing. You can also save a detail as a Revit file if you just want to export it. So say this detail, I want to save it as a new file. Then I'm going to create a blank project, but it's only going to have that view. Why did this work? Maybe you want to, like, if you're in the process of collecting typical details, then you can just cherry pick the ones that are useful. You don't have a destination yet. You just want to extract them. So in this case, let's say I'm going to select this detail and say save this to a new file. And this is going to create a new Revit file with nothing but the drafting views on it. So under the D drive, somewhere, I call this typical partitions. Save it. And then when I open that file, open, go to typical partitions. I'm only going to see the views, the drafting views that I exported. So different ways of in the insert from file is a way to bring files into your current project. And then the other option is to save the details as an external file and then share the file with others as needed. All right. I guess that it is for today. It's 7:25. We cover a lot of content. Feel free to review it, the recording. Next class, we're going to talk about we cover sheet and detail management, and we also covered two-dimensional components today and working with CAD. Next class on next Tuesday, we're going to talk about phasing and work sets and work sharing. These might be relevant for a lot of you, especially if you're doing retrofits. This is a way to capture existing conditions versus new condition, apply different visibility graphics to the existing objects and new objects, and how you can create schedules that are phase specific, and then how you create design options to a client and propose different options of an area or a region of the model. Okay, so we are, like I mentioned, we are only 3 classes left for us. So rushing on the last few classes, but hopefully this is useful or helpful. All right, again, feel free to stay online if you have additional questions. Otherwise, have a great weekend and see you Tuesday.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.